Welcome everyone to the Science of Baseball virtual field trip. My name is Darren Heaton. Thank you all for joining. Today we are going to be talking to Christian Marshall. Christian Marshall is a quality assurance engineer at Raytheon and is someone that actually used to be at the New Orleans MLB Youth Academy. So going on to the theme of these virtual field trips is to really be able to expose youth to different opportunities that are within STEM and sports. And so really excited to have Christian join us today. So Christian, welcome. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. How you doing, Darren?
I'm good. Can you see my backdrop? I'm at Dodger Stadium, so no complaints over here. But tell us a little bit about, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're busy, so love to get right into it. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Hey everybody, my name is Christian Marshall. Helicopters flying over. My name is Christian Marshall. I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. I graduated from Tuskegee University in 2019 with my mechanical engineering degree. And I was also one of the first students, one of the first trainees in the MLB Youth Academy in New Orleans when they first started up in 2013. Thinking back on it, it's really been a journey, just to see the growth. Um, and also now I'm also working a um, as a quality assurance engineer at Raytheon Technologies, which is an aerospace company. So I'm working in the aerospace industry as of right now.
That's awesome. And can you tell us a little bit more about what mechanical engineering is?
So really, mechanical engineering is a very broad field, right? Mechanical engineers are everywhere, but mechanical engineers basically focus on um, the structure of mechanisms, right? How mechanisms come together, whether it be how a screw fits into a bracket, or how there's a or maybe also mechanical engineers focus on the design of bigger structures, right? Um, Mechanical engineers focus on anything from like thermal thermal analysis, which is just dealing with heat, how heat interacts with different surfaces. And mechanical engineers can even go on to focus on how electrical systems, right? So mechanical engineering is very broad, but the focus is just how to really uh, make sure that whatever system that we have, we're able to make sure that it fits it fits properly and that it won't break. So we really focus on the structural aspect of different things that we build.
That's great. And so I'm really curious just how you got into that, right? Like, take us back to when you're middle school, elementary school, like maybe that happened later or during that time, but really curious, how you got into that sort of field and where that kind of exposure came from.
Honestly, just thinking about it is kind of crazy because it started back in high school. And honestly, before I wasn't even thinking about being an engineer until maybe like my sophomore or junior year in high school. Um, Originally, because I was a student athlete and I was and I was focused on baseball. I was like, well, I'll just go into sports medicine or biology or something along those lines, which I was pretty okay at. But then one of my teachers, Mr. Baptiste at McDonald 35 Senior High School, that was my high school I went to, McDonald 35 Senior High School, New Orleans. Um, he uh he was an engineer, but he taught math, and so he saw that I was really good at math and I understood the concepts. And he was like, why don't you try and become an engineer?" And I was like, "An engineer? What do engineers do?" And so he kind of broke it down to me that engineers are basically the critical thinkers of the world, the innovators of the world. We just take whatever's there and we make it better, right? And so he was like, well, you know, if you love baseball so much, why not come up with ways? There's a way for you to actually apply those mechanical engineering principles to baseball, right? And so he's like, you're talking about building stadiums, you're talking about, you know, designing bats, you talk because everything that's all mechanical stuff. Um, Designing bats, anything, everything like that. So I was like, whoa, okay. So I started doing more research, and then it was a wrap from there. That's where I really got that experience with engineering. And once I started doing that, I did robotics camps, learned how to do a little bit of programming, building robots, and going to the STEM camps throughout high school. And basically from there, I just started falling in love with like engineering, just because of the critical thinking that it required to put things together and create something and innovate something. When a problem comes up, it was more so I just love like solving problems, and so all engineers are problem solvers. So as I started to learn that and get better with that, it was pretty much a wrap from there.
So you had mentioned a couple things. Obviously, I'm at Dodger Stadium here. So uh, you mentioned equipment design, but you also mentioned stadium design. So if you are someone that is looking to design a stadium, for instance, like the scoreboard that's over here, is that mechanical engineering?
That is definitely mechanical engineering because guess what? Uh, Everything that they have, all those electrical components that go into that scoreboard, need something to hold it, and it can't just hold it together, but it has to be structurally sound enough to to be in place where it's at, so it doesn't crumble, it doesn't fall. So that's what mechanical engineers focus on. We focus on those. We focus on the joints. We focus on how things come together, and that they're able to stay together once it's built. So yeah, so that's definitely mechanical engineering. Even from the stadium itself, like that's more so structural. And to get a little deeper, that's more structural engineering. When you're dealing with actual buildings and how buildings come together.
Yeah, I think that's something that the kids will have fun with. We've talked about a number of things on these virtual field trips, from shoe design and a little bit more on the industrial engineering side. And so to be able to also hammer home the mechanical engineering side and kind of piece it together, right? Like, they're big fancy words, right? So how do we simplify it for someone that is in elementary or middle school, and how do they start to work on those principles at that age, in hopes that maybe it will lead them to someone like you in your position, to be able to build a stadium once. So I'm curious if you have any advice for some of these youngsters that are looking to get into engineering, or maybe just the way that you balanced baseball and school.
So for the younger folks, I would say that in order to get started right now, just do your best and just really, especially with those math and science classes, just really lock in on those concepts, um, and really just learn as much as you can. Because guess what? Even when you become an engineer and you're in your field, you're still gonna have a whole lot more learning to do. Um, Everything is gonna be you're still gonna have to go and refer back to things that you've looked over and stuff like that. But um, really, like the emphasis is going to be the math, um, in the science, and just practice every day. That's really what I did when I was in school, and when I was in high school, and even when I was a baseball player in college, because I played in college as well, Tuskegee University. In order to balance that, I just practiced repetition. I took every time, all the time that I could, to making sure that I just got my work done. Um, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I am the hardest. I feel like I am one of the hardest working people in the world. So as long as you work hard and you stay diligent, you stay focused, and really just continue to work every single day, because you're not gonna be perfect every day. But as long as you continue to like keep going and keep trying and keep giving your best, you can be an engineer. So never think that you can't be an engineer. You can't go do extraordinary things, because it's all about you believing in yourself at the end of the day.
Just having that
And
positive attitude, right? Like,
right,
and being okay to fail, being okay to make mistakes. And I think
right.
that's such an important lesson, regardless of if it's baseball or trying to be an engineer, on a daily basis, if you can strive to get better and put yourself in situations that are going to challenge you and be open to the failure that may happen and come from it, have a positive mindset, do the things that you love, right? And so I think it's an important message for everyone. And what I was curious, what position did you play?
So um, when I was in high school, I played the infield. I played third and first base, and I pitched. Then when I got to college, I was still a utility player. I played third and first base, and I pitched. But then my junior senior year, I became a pitcher DH. So I was kind of one of the utility guys on the team, and ended up being molded into the ace, basically into a starting pitcher, towards the end of my college career.
That's great. And once you finished your college career, you had a pretty awesome internship that you were able to get. Can you speak a little bit about that internship and where you were able to get some working experience at?
Oh yeah, most definitely. So I what during my I think it was my junior year, was about 2018. In 2018, I got an opportunity to do an internship with NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory out in Pasadena, California. So it was my first time on the West Coast, but it was probably one of the best experiences that I've had, um, as, from the STEM field, and being able to get that work experience, because now. Um, I was getting real live experience, working with things that were going to get launched into space. I worked on the Mars 2020 rover, so that's the Perseverance rover that just launched late last year. So I was able to, so being able to see that get launched into space, I looked at it and I said, hey, like I touched that, like I had something to do with that. So it's kind of crazy looking at it now, because I didn't think, you do certain things, you don't really realize like what you're doing until it's actually done. um, but it was a great experience. I learned a lot from people. I made a lot of relationships with people. And overall, just the overall experience of just being in the technical field, and being able to uh, touch things and work with things and work with mechanisms, things like that, that's basically, going to be part of the evolution of technology and the world. So it was definitely a great experience.
So someone that's looking to get an internship, like how do you even go about that?
So for internships, what I did was, luckily at Tuskegee, um, we had a person over student affairs, Miss Dean, Miss Toya Dean. Shout out to her; she's a wonderful asset. But I would go to my advisor and go to her. She would send out scholarship scholarship info. She would send out internship info, but more so, just go out and look online for just different scholarships, right? Um, they have different scholarships for for anything, internships for everything. So you just kind of have to just browse the internet. Google's your best friend, So as far as internships, what I would do, I would if I knew I was interested in a certain field, I would look up the companies in those fields, right? I would look up the companies, like if I was into like aerospace, for instance. So like you got Raytheon, you got Boeing, you got Northrop Grumman, you got Lockheed Martin, uh, you got NASA. So if you're interested in that field, um, or if you're interested in aerospace, for instance, go on their website and see if they have any. And I will go on their website and see if they had any internship opportunities. And then whatever internship position that they had, I will go on my resume and make sure that my what was on my resume reflected what the role was that I was applying for. So that was basically what I did as far as internships, and then also communicate with professors as well, because professors have a lot of connections in different places, and teachers. I got a lot of internship opportunities just from talking to teachers and having good relationships with my teachers. And then reaching out to them, and they'll come back to me after class and say, "Hey, I have an internship opportunity." That's actually how I got the NASA opportunity. One of my professors did the internship experience last year, and I was in the class with him. He said, "I'm taking resumes. Make sure you submit a resume." I had him for a class, and I submitted my resume, and then I got picked. So it's also good not just to go and go look at these different companies and do it yourself, but also utilize your resources as far as the network that because you never know who knows who, right? So it's all about who you know, right? So making sure that you have that established that relationship with people as well.
You had mentioned something at the beginning about having the best work ethic. And I think that really does apply to this situation as well, because nothing's really going to just fall in your lap. Very rarely will it just fall in your lap. You got to put in the work, regardless if it's baseball, whether it's being a mechanical engineer, or even just trying to find a job that's out there. You got to put in the work. You got to be able to do the research and see what those opportunities are. So I really love that. And if you're cool, let's throw up some questions here. We see a couple that are coming in. So the first question: what was it like attending an HBCU, and how did you decide on Tuskegee?
Man, going to HBCU was probably the best choice I ever made. I'm not gonna even lie to you. Going to an HBCU was probably the best decision I ever made. If I could go do all 4 years again, I will go do it again, mistakes and all, because that's who made me who I am today. But it was a beautiful experience. Just being around people that look like you. It's a common, and even though they're from different backgrounds and different cultures, right? They have different from different states or whatever. But the but as far as being a minority, that's the connection that you have, and when you go to an HBCU, it gives you a chance to make those connections with people like you, and once you actually go out before you actually go out into the real world, and now you have ties with people for probably the rest of your life. I've made all my lifelong friends at Tuskegee, and I can call any one of them up and we talk like we just talked yesterday. So just it was a beautiful experience, and I really decided on Tuskegee. Well, maybe decide on Tuskegee, which is also kind of funny because I wasn't even thinking about Tuskegee at first. I was applying to like Brown, Vanderbilt, Stanford, Rice, all these big schools, right? But I actually remember Tuskegee, and my coach, my summer ball coach, our Sartan, he had two players that went to Tuskegee and played baseball, Russell and Stanley. They went to play baseball. So that's kind of how I first heard of Tuskegee. And then as I got closer to my senior year, I was talking to my academic advisor, and he gave me a list of schools to go ahead and apply to, and Tuskegee was on there. And so I was like, well, that's the second time I heard Tuskegee. I might as well apply and see what I can get. And so when I applied to Tuskegee, they gave me academic scholarship right away. And then that following February or March, um, I got a call the from the baseball coach, who was the assistant baseball coach at the time, who's not head coach, Reginald Hollins. He he gave me a call and said, "Hey, we want to offer you a baseball scholarship." So I got the best of both worlds. So that's really the reason why I decided on Tuskegee, because with the academic scholarship and that baseball scholarship, most of my tuition was paid for. And so then I had like FAFSA, and I went and applied for other outside scholarships like through UNCF, um, and other
I see a
other
common
things like
theme
that.
here. I
Say
see
it
a
again.
common thing about your work ethic.
Yeah,
It applies to every aspect of your life, and that's awesome. So
right.
just want to give you a shout out on that. And another question comes from Megan Marriott. In terms of stadium design, can you tell a little bit about the difference between an architect's job and the mechanical engineer's job?
So an architect's job is really more so the design as far as the dimensions, the geometry of like the stadium. right? The kind of like more the aesthetic, how it looks. But as far as from a mechanical engineer's job, we're focused on the structural aspect. And so that's looking outside of everything and making sure that whatever's being designed, right, based on the dimensions and stuff that the architect gives out, um, it's making sure that okay, if we put this roof up, will it be able to hold up with the beams we have? Are we choosing the right beams? You know, when it comes to the fence, do we have the do we are we putting the are we sticking the poles to the fence down far enough to where it won't crumble or break if somebody has to run into it or hop over it to catch a fly ball? So it's like it's things like that. We're more so focused on the structural aspect and making sure that this thing is sustainable and able to hold up throughout a long period of time. Where architects just kind of architects more so focus on just the design aspect.
Right? You can draw this amazing baseball ballpark on paper. You can put a pool in there, you put an alligator pond, slide, but how's it going to happen, right? That's the
Right,
mechanical engineer's job. So,
right.
so a little bit of advice for the students that are watching this is, if you're building something, now that you have that idea of what you want in the stadium, how is it going to get done, right? I think that's a very important element. So appreciate the insight on that, and thank you for the question, Megan. So any other questions here? We're gonna wait to field a couple more if anyone has any, but just a little bit, talk a little bit about where you live now, and how that kind of transition from taking a big risk again, from moving across the country basically. What was that like?
Man, it was a journey. It was a it was a definite leap of faith. I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely a leap of faith. So right now I live in Los Angeles. I live in Los Angeles, California. Well, technically Wilmington, which is close to Long Beach, California. Um, but still in the Los Angeles County. So it was I got my I got my offer to come to Raytheon like my senior year. So that's before I even graduated, like October of my senior year. Got that offer. Um, but unfortunately, it didn't come with relocation. And so now during the summer, I had to hustle and bustle to make some money to make it out here. So not only just make it out here, but pay my first month's rent, get furniture, all that stuff. So it wasn't easy. I'll tell you that. Like it wasn't easy because most companies give you relocation or something like that when you know, sign. But I didn't get that. So I was like, well, this is the only job offer I got, so I'm gonna have to make it work. You know, so so
Yeah.
luckily, you know, work at that summer, you know, thanks to Darren and the science support team, you know, gave me the opportunity to go ahead and internship and host that camp that year in 2019. Um, to help me do that as well as the with Coach Eddie Davis at the New Orleans Youth Academy, also helping me do that as well to make those funds come together and also just give back, man. I love the game of baseball. I love dealing with I love giving back to the youth. So all that was a give. All that was mutual for everybody. I feel like, but yeah, that it was a leap of faith, and I had to drive across the country. I didn't fly. I had to drive across the country with everything in the U-Haul. So
How long did that take you?
it took me about 3 days. I rode with my mother and my girlfriend, and they helped me drive. So we had two. We stayed 2 nights, but it took us 3 days to get there. It's a journey. Yeah, it's a journey.
Yeah, I went to school at Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and I'm from Phoenix, and even that drive with the U-Haul was 21 hours, but it's sketch with the U-Haul. That's a whole
Yeah.
other piece to worry about. So,
Right.
but I want to throw another question. We got some more kind of filtering in here. David Andrews wants to know: can you share what it was like to be a student athlete in college, and how did you learn to manage your time?
So being a student athlete in college, it was not easy. I had to make sacrifices. I'm not gonna lie. Honestly, my first 2 years of college, I partied a lot. I'm not gonna lie, partied a lot because those classes were not I wasn't fully in my field. But once I got fully immersed in all engineering classes, that's when it hit me, and I was like, yeah, I can't. I have to sacrifice something. So it comes down to sacrifice and just taking the time um, in different aspects. So I would wake up 5 a.m., have weights, go to class around 8, 9, and then I'll eat lunch, and then I come back, go another class, and have practice. So really, it's about managing time and able to get study, being able to study during those gaps in your time. Because I was taking maybe 19, I was taking 18, 19 credits for 2 years straight at school. So as well as playing baseball. So, but luckily with baseball, we did go on the road, so we had to miss certain classes. We got excuses, but I made sure I took advantage of that opportunity that we got on the road. So when we would go on the road, say we left on a Thursday to go to a weekend series, I would be studying from the time we left until we got to the hotel, right? Or I would study for majority of the trip and then like get some sleep before we actually got to the hotel. And then when we actually after we got in, went to the hotel, I would study some more, but really just find those gaps to study for real. And just being able to really being intentional about getting the work done. Because once you get back to school, you're gonna have that test. You're gonna have that homework that's due. So that's how I was able to manage my time. And being able to do that was the most helpful thing I could have did, because if I didn't, it would have been fairly difficult. And also managing study groups. So get cool with people in your class as well, because there were people in the class if we weren't there, and I had a couple other people that were mechanical engineers too. So we were all on the team doing the same thing. Um, making sure you have those study groups, getting cool with people in your class. That way you can hit them up maybe when you're about to go on your trip, or whatever, and just say, hey, I have to go play ball. Can you take good notes while I'm gone? And I can get them back from you. Can you send a picture of them over to me so I can write them down? So using all your resources is how I was able to manage that time and just figure that out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of distractions, right, in college. So if you know where you want to get to and you have that plan, those distractions are less likely to creep in. And
Right.
so, I just want to mention that. And again, kudos to you and all your success and stuff that you've had within your college career and to getting to where you are now. But I'll end with one more question, and that's coming from Mr. Green here. What will be the strong skills I might need to be a mechanical engineer? What are some of those skills that you are going to need when going into mechanical engineering?
Uh, the skills you'll need, strong skills. You'll really definitely need uh to acquire some strong math skills, because you're gonna have to take a whole bunch of math, a whole bunch of calculus. Um, but more so is going to be the critical. As far as the school's perspective, you're gonna need a lot of math. Um, and also you're going to need a good sense of like geometry, right? How shapes how shapes can be rotated, oriented, and stuff like that. Because then you're going to go into design aspect of being a mechanical engineer. So also learning how to use Excel and different other softwares as well. So learning like what does it have? AutoCAD, NX. Those are design software that a lot of Pro E. So a lot of those different design tools as well. You got to learn those things. Um, but ultimately, just the ability to critically think, right? Because engineers of the whole year, I remember as an engineer in any function, your job is to critically think and solve a problem, right? So you also gonna need, as far as the job, right? As far as the actual job in the job world, you're gonna need strong people skills, interpersonal skills. You're gonna have to have strong communication skills. Like I said, you're not gonna be able to know you're not gonna know everything, and there's always a different way to approach a problem. So you're gonna have to have those strong social skills and communication skills to interact with people and get to an answer and to also get to an answer that makes sense. So working with people as well. So those are like the little soft skills you need to have as well. So but as long as you have the ability to critically think, have strong math skills, and really just a desire to get to where you want to be, because it's all about the desire. It's all about the want to, and also about putting the work. As long as you put in the work, you'll be able to become that. Because everybody's not gonna know everything, but you can learn. You can always learn. So as long as you have the ability to learn, you're going to be a good engineer in whatever function.
Excellent advice. I'm gonna put you to the test real quick. So we talked. You mentioned one thing about geometry, and so I'm gonna test out your knowledge about geometry on the baseball field.
You gonna put me on the spot like
that? Where I'm gonna. All right, I want you to answer this. Where is there a square on the baseball field?
There's a square in the batter's box.
Yes. There's a square in the batter's box. There's a square on the infield, right?
Yeah.
90 feet,
Right
90 feet, 90 feet.
Right, on the base.
The actual base is a square.
Yep.
All right, next question. Where is there a rectangle?
A rectangle? The coach's box is considered a rectangle. If you want to look at the fence, because if you have those mats, those can be considered rectangles as well.
Yeah. You were a pitcher too, right?
Yeah, and then on the mound as well. Right.
Yeah. So there's geometry within baseball, right? Like, let's apply it back to some ways that the kids can start thinking about it a little bit differently using baseball and softball, a sport that they love. So excellent job, nice work, and even when I put you on the spot, you got it. But I can't thank you enough, and just really appreciate you hopping on to talk with these kids. And I know it's going to have an impact, even more so than the impact that you've already installed within these kids that have attending our programs in the past. And especially you mentioned Eddie, big shout out to him, and the camp that you've been able to help out with there in New Orleans. So again, thanks for hopping on, and that's it for this week's Science of Sport virtual field trip. And really appreciate you joining, Christian.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. It really means a lot to me to be able to give back in whatever form or fashion. So never be afraid to reach out. Like I said, we're here. We're in the same area now. So whatever you need, I got you. And to all the kids, just remember, you can always be whatever you can be as long as you keep the vision in the front of your mind, and you always put in the work to get there. It's gonna happen for you in due time. So don't ever give up. Don't ever give up on your dreams. Don't ever give up on anything you want out of life, because you can do anything you want to do.
Mic drop. That's the way to end it. That's it for today. Thanks for joining, and until next time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.